to weigh heavily on their mind. I think that it's, again, there are alternative ways that this can be done through pictures. I think there's probably later next week, we are going to be seeing some pictures and medical reports and maybe even some renderings, some medical type renderings that are put together. I don't know that it really adds anything other than the shock value of having a skull here that cannot be accomplished through, again, these other means. And I object at this time. Again, I think it's overly prejudicial, and prejudicial value severely outweighs the probative value and any additional value that has evidentiary is next to none. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cole?
Your Honor, this piece of evidence is highly relevant and probative to this case. It has not been attested to yet, but it will be that numerous unknown bones were found, but that none of those bones turned out to be human bones. So this piece of skull is the only portion of evidence that we have that shows that an actual person existed and is deceased. And this piece of skull is identified through dental records, which will come out next week. This skull is no more shocking or to a person than seeing a skeleton in a science class in college or high school. I mean, we're all adults here. This is not anything shocking. There's not a lot of blood. There's not pieces of flesh attached to this skull. It is a clean skull that is no more shocking than what somebody would observe in a science laboratory at a high school or a college. As I indicated, it's very probative because this is the only piece of evidence that we have that Chris Reagan existed and is now deceased. And I would ask that the court allow its admission. We don't intend to display it in any egregious manner to inflame the jury, because we are well aware that we are creating a record here. But I do think that it's highly relevant to this case.
All right, thank you. It certainly is relevant, and it may be prejudicial, but it's not unfairly prejudicial. I'm going to allow it. I would just ask that everybody treat that evidence with respect. I understand the families would be here, and so I'm asking that be done.
We will, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, let's have the jury in.
All right. All right.
Everybody please be seated. The jury is now with us in the jury box. Ms. Cole and Ms. Rizzo, just remind you that
Yes, Your Honor. Was a search via search warrant conducted again of the defendant's home on May 17th, 2015?
Yes, there was.
And did you have some people with you at that time to assist with the search warrant?
Yes, I did.
And was there a canine unit involved?
Yes, there was.
And where did the canine unit come from?
Flint, Michigan.
And what did you do with the canine unit?
The canine unit did the area surrounding the defendant's home, the interior of the home, and the garage. Also, while they were there, they did the area surrounding the Caspian pit, as well as actually got into the water in like a kayak with their dogs, because the dogs are also water trained. So they also did scent on water.
With respect to the area around the home at 66 Lawrence, were there any hits at that place?
Around the exterior of the house, and also inside the garage.
And when you say around the exterior of the house, where around the exterior of the house?
To be the east entryway into the residence, there's some wooden planks that two of the dogs indicated scent on. And also there was an area located on the northwest side of the garage exterior, small area that the dogs both indicated on, as well as inside of the garage, both dogs, and this is separately, indicated that there was scent. As explained to me by the trainers, that there was just scent in that garage. They explained to me that the scent can absorb into wood and things like that, and the dogs were alerting on that.
So are these human remains dogs?
Yes.
Okay. What did you do with respect to the items that the dogs hid on outside in that patio area, those wooden planks? What did you do with those?
Collected them.
And was there anything collected from the garage, or did you do anything around the garage?
We removed all of the items from the garage just to be sure that there wasn't scent on those items, and the dogs checked each of those items, which were spread out in the field area. And once that was done, they came back into the garage again with nothing in it, and again alerted on scent in the garage.
So you collected those items. Did you then proceed to the Caspian Pit area?
Yes.
And what did you do first at the Caspian Pit area?
I believe, I believe there were 4 dogs total, and I think a team of 2 were checking like the perimeter around the pit, and then I had there was one handler that went into the water in a kayak, I believe, with the dog.
And did anything happen with the dog that was in the kayak?
Yes, there was scent detected, and what they do is they'll take one dog. They had 2 dogs that were water trained, and they'll take one dog out, and separately they record GPS on the locations that they're getting as the dog is indicating. So the 2 of them did that. Both of them got indication when in the water with their dog. They compared and had like a diagonal line of scent that the dogs both indicated on.
And was a second dog utilized in the kayak as well, or in a boat?
We had used a boat for one of the dogs, I believe, that we had gotten through the help of Dave Painter, a conservation officer, Cochran officer, who had like a flat boat, a flat front boat for the dog to sit on.
Were there indications from these dogs independent of each other with respect to the water?
Yes.
So what did you do when there was this positive indication on the water?
I contacted the Delta County dive team, who responded, I believe, the next day to dive the pit, and also they had a side scan sonar on their boat that kind of showed them the bottom of the pit or sides, shelves of the pit, so they could see if there was anything of interest.
What, if anything, was done with the dogs with respect to the area around the pit, the ground area as opposed to the water?
They were separately again taken into the locations, the wooded areas surrounding the pit to see if they could get an indication of scent because of the wind. They wanted to make sure that there wasn't scent around the pit that was possibly blowing the scent because water will hold the scent of decomposition. So they wanted to make sure that they weren't going to get any kind of scent alerts around the pit that could have been causing that.
So the Delta County dive team comes to the pit and they used, what did you say it was, side sonar?
Side scan sonar.
What is side scan sonar, if you know?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It just allows them to view like I said, the shelves and the bottom of the pit.
Was anything found by the dive team on that day?
Yes.
And were you present for this entire search with the Delta County dive team?
Yes.
What was found?
There was a burn barrel located I believe it was approximately 11 feet off the shoreline, on like, probably in the middle area of the pit itself, on the east side of the pit.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just, it was noticed from one of the divers who was in the boat as they went by it. They could see something on the sonar, and he was able to actually see it when he looked down from the boat.
What did this burn barrel itself look like?
It was rusty. It was a rusty burn barrel. What he took note of was that there was a cement block that appeared to have been attached by a rope that they didn't know at the time, but thought maybe a clothesline. When they pulled it up, identified it as a clothesline.
And first of all, why, what reason, if any, did you have to believe that the defendant ever possessed a burn barrel?
When we did the first search warrant March of 2015, one of the neighbors that I made contact with told me that they had a burn barrel that sat between the house and the garage. Actually said he had made contact with Jason Cochran at one time when Jason was burning items in it. So I knew it had existed. And later on I did ask Kelly about her burn barrel. And she told me she didn't know what happened to it.
But the defendant herself did admit in a later interview that they had a burn barrel at one point in time?
Yes.
Was another search warrant conducted in May of 2015 at the Cochran residence?
May 19th, I believe, May 20th.
Okay. And what were you looking for at that point in time, and who, if anyone, went with you?
DNA. I knew we needed DNA for comparison purposes, and I knew that they probably weren't going to give it to me. So basically, my interest was to go there and get maybe hairbrushes or hats or flossing devices or a toothbrush, things like that.
And did you collect anything from the residence at that point in time?
Yeah, we collected a brush. From inside, there were a couple other spots on the bottom of the stairwell that were of interest that were collected, as well as the ash from the fire pit.
And when you say the ash from the fire pit, could you please explain to the jury what you're referring to specifically?
So the Cochrans had out their east entryway, the back door, in between the house and the garage was like a cement area, and that's where the burn barrel allegedly sat. And so just north of the garage or diagonal from that area, they had a fire pit with like large stones around it.
And what, if anything, was done with respect to the fire pit?
It was excavated, I guess. All the ash was removed and collected.
And how was it placed into bags? How was it collected?
It was placed into very large evidence bags, 3 of them.
And what did you do with respect to the fire pit ash? Did you take it back to the department?
Yes, and Mike Niger actually helped me collect that ash as he was shoveling it, I guess, into the bags. It was noted visually that there was a reciprocating saw blade mixed within the ash.
And were there other items? Well, at a later point in time, did you sift through the ash?
Yes, I had the assistance of the Michigan State Police Fire Marshal Hillier came to my department and actually sifted through the ash with me.
And were any items recovered from sifting through the ash?
Yes. There were components to one pair of Old Navy jeans. There was the button, the zipper, and 2 bras, all identified as Old Navy.
Now, was the ash sent after sifting to another location to determine if there was any remains in there?
Yes. Originally, not only the components to the jeans were found, but there were some other pieces that looked similar to bone fragments and whatnot. Those were sent to Dr. Defendant at Michigan State University. And then at a much later date, the remaining ash was then taken to the FBI Quantico lab and gone through again.
I want to take you back for a minute to the house when you were executing this search warrant. You were collecting the ash, you were collecting the hairbrush. Were you looking for some particular items in the residence based on information you had received from David Saylor?
Oh, yes. Based on the information I received from David Saylor, I was looking for a sawzall. So I made note of some other power tools that were in the house, but there was no sawzall there.
On July 24th, 2015, did you meet with Detective Dvorak at the Hobart Police Department in Hobart, Indiana?
Yes, I did.
And what was the purpose of this meeting?
To serve the DNA search warrants on the defendant and her husband.
And did you yourself collect the sample, or was that collected by somebody else?
It was collected by the CSI unit from Lake County, Indiana.
And did you observe the collection of the DNA sample?
Yes, I did.
During that time frame, did you speak with Jason Cochran at the Hobart Police Department?
Yes, I did.
And is this the point in time when you confirmed with him his handwriting in that book?
Yes.
What was his demeanor at the time you were discussing that notebook with him?
He was very shocked to see me, first of all, and his face immediately turned very red. He was taking very large gulps of air. I could see he was very nervous. Very quiet, shaky.
Was the defendant also brought down to Hobart PD to have her DNA sample taken?
Yes,
And was that observed as well?
yes,
Did you speak with her on that day?
I did.
And did you confront her about a statement that she had made previously?
Yes.
What was the statement that she had made previously?
Telling me that she had no idea where the park and ride was located.
And what was your discussion with her on that date in Hobart?
I had her text messages with me between her and Eric Erickson, in which she...
Could you keep your voice up, please?
Yes, sir. I had her text messages with me between herself and Eric Erickson, in which she was meeting him at the park and ride.
And did they call it something else in the text message?
They called it the spot,
Oh, did they call it the carpool lot?
the parking lot.
Were those DNA samples turned over to you?
Yes,
And did you forward those DNA samples to another location?
yes.
And where did you forward those to?
And because we used the MSP lab and the FBI lab, I believe those were forwarded to the FBI lab.
Were you present on August 31st, 2015 when the FBI executed the search warrant that we discussed yesterday?
Yes,
Did you take custody of the items that the FBI seized?
yes, I did.
And were those items delivered to Quantico at a later date?
Yes, I believe it was November 13th, maybe.
Of 2015?
Yes.
Okay. How were they delivered to Quantico?
The items of evidence were driven to Quantico. One of the FBI agents, Jay Johnston, along with one of my officers, Anthony Silva, drove the items out. There was some very large items that couldn't be shipped.
And were you present when another search warrant was executed by the FBI in Indiana on Jason and Kelly Cochran?
Yes.
And that was the search warrant for the dog hair, the defendant's hair, major case palm and fingerprints, and the vehicle?
Yes.
Did you take custody of evidence seized during that time frame?
No, I believe the evidence response team took the evidence with them to the lab.
I'm now going to direct your attention to February 22nd, 2016. Did you speak with Detective Jeremy Ogden on that date regarding the defendant and Jason Cochran?
Yes, I did.
Based on your conversation with Detective Ogden, what was your understanding as to Jason Cochran's status?
That he was dead.
On March 29th, 2016, did you receive another call from Detective Ogden?
Yes, I did.
And I want to back up a minute. Had you ever met Detective Ogden before February 22nd, 2016?
No, I had not.
And when was the first time that you actually met Detective Ogden?
On the phone or in person?
In person.
I believe it was March 23rd, 2016.
And what occurred on March 23rd, 2016, where you met him in person?
He came to Iron River and wanted to view the scene, the Cochran residence, the park and ride, areas of interest in the case because of his contacts with Kelly while she's in Indiana. He wanted to familiarize himself with the case to do more effective interviews with her.
So you received a call from him on March 29th, 2016. Based on the information you received during that call, what was your understanding as to Chris Reagan's status?
That Chris Reagan was shot by Jason Cochran at the Cochran residence on October 14, 2014, and he died quickly.
Was the defendant claiming any responsibility at that point in time for Chris Reagan's death?
No.
Was there a point in time when the defendant accompanied Detective Ogden to Iron County from Indiana?
Yes.
And was there another detective with them?
Yes.
A detective from Hobart?
Yes.
Did that occur on March 29th, March 30th, 2016?
They arrived in Green River approximately 7:20 a.m. on March 30th, 2016.
And what is your understanding of the purpose of the trip?
Kelly Cochran advised Detective Ogden that she wanted to show him or show us where Chris Reagan's remains were located.
And when they arrived in town, did they first come to the Iron River Police Department?
Yes, they did.
And what, if anything, occurred at the police department?
Detective Ogden, Detective Sykes, who was with him, and Kelly came into the office. I was in the back room because the plan was for us to follow them to the location. I had my evidence technician and as well as a trooper from the state police that were going to accompany me to the location. Detective Ogden came into the back and said that, letting me know they were there. He then came back and told me that Kelly was requesting to speak to me.
And did you and the defendant speak on March 30th, 2016 at the Iron River Police Department?
Yes.
Where did that conversation occur?
Well, I went up to the front where she was standing with the detectives to, talk with her, and she wanted to talk alone. So I took her into the interview room.
And did someone else come into the interview room during that conversation?
Yes, Detective Ogden.
What did she say to you in the interview room on March 30th, 2016?
The first thing I think she said to me was, "Are you going to leave me alone after this? You've been on my ass for a year and a half, and I didn't do anything. I didn't kill anybody. I didn't steal anybody's car." She wanted immunity. She didn't want to be charged for in any way connected to Chris Reagan's death.
What was her demeanor during this time frame?
She was confrontational. She was questioning me about this letter that she thought we had received, and she wanted to see that. And she was confrontational. She had things she wanted to say to me, and I think she even told me that.
Did the defendant appear to you at all lethargic or exhausted in any way?
Not at all.
So you have this discussion with Kelly Cochran in the interview room. Did you guys at some point in time leave the police station?
Yes.
And where did you go?
We took US 2 east, and we turned south onto Pentoga Trail.
And I'm going to stop you there for a moment. Who traveled in what vehicles?
The detectives and Kelly were in the vehicle that we followed. I was behind their vehicle, Officer Hadley in another patrol car behind me, and Trooper Mundy in a vehicle behind Hadley.
And when you left the police station, did you know that you were proceeding to Pentoga Trail?
No, I don't think I did. I'm not positive.
So you were following the Hobart Police Detective's vehicle?
Yes.
So you turned south on Pentoga Trail. What happened next?
We went down Pentoga Trail south approximately a mile, maybe a little short of a mile, and the detectives turned around and she said, "We have to go back this way." So we all turned around, and not far from where we turned around, they pulled over onto the shoulder of the road.
What happened after you pulled over to the shoulder of the road?
The detectives, or one of the detectives got out and indicated that she is saying this is the area that Chris Reagan's remains were dumped, and that they weren't placed far from the road, maybe 8 to 10 feet.
Did she direct you to a specific location, like a specific rock or tree or landmark at that point in time?
No.
Just the bags were placed 8 to 10 feet off the road?
Yes.
Was there any discussion, were you talking to her at all during this time, or was she only communicating with the detectives?
Just the detectives.
Was there any discussion as to whether or not the bags were still out there that had Chris Reagan's remains, or whether the bags were taken from the scene?
I believe she had told the detective that the bags were dumped out and the bags were taken from the scene.
How long did you guys spend on the side of the road there in that particular area where she showed you these remains were supposed to have been placed?
2 days.
Well, I mean, how long that exact time period?
We never left there.
Did the detectives leave there?
Yes, they left. I believe they probably stayed there trying to help, get more information if needed from her. I think they probably were there for a few hours, maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Was the defendant allowed to, was she allowed out of the vehicle to help search the area?
She got out of the vehicle one time. She had to go to the bathroom, and she went on the opposite side of the road down. That was the only time she got out.
So, was a search of the area conducted after she identified this location as being where the remains were placed?
Yes.
And you indicated that you were there a couple days. Is that how long it took the search to be conducted?
Yes, and we had to, wait for, I called the FBI evidence response team, so they were on their way, the cadaver dogs were on their way from Phoenix, so until they got there, we just kind of did a surface search.
And once they arrived, did you begin immediately when they arrived to search?
Yes.
Were you hampered by anything or hindered by anything during that time frame?
Yes.
What?
The worst and biggest snowflakes I've ever seen in my life. It was wet, heavy snow. It didn't stop for 2 days.
Did you continue to search despite that?
Yes.
What type of, was this a grid search that was conducted?
There was a grid search done. The dogs had their own independent area. They, I can't recall what they referred to their searches as, but they had their own way of doing their searches with the dogs. And then basically Leslie Larson, the FBI, kind of was in charge of the grid search that we did do.
And for clarification, what exactly is your understanding of a grid search?
It's just a formation of all of us in where, we start at a certain point, and if we're going to do one specific sized area, we all basically move together, checking under foliage and things like that, and we keep together and do one section at a time.
And was anything found on these dates during these searches?
No.
What about the canines? Did they hit on anything during that time frame?
No.
What did you think about the area that she directed you to on that day when you were out there?
I thought it was very unlikely that that would be an area you would stop your vehicle and get rid of somebody's body.
Okay. And why is that?
Because the trees were sparse, it was open. I mean, anyone would have seen you if they had driven by, and I don't understand why anyone would do that.
Now, you indicated that you, your caravan, I guess, had driven south on Pantoga Trail and then turned around and drove back north. How far away approximately were you from US 2 when she stopped and said this is where he was placed?
I think just short of a mile.
Away from US 2?
Yes.
I now want to direct your attention to April of 2016. On April 7th, did you receive a call from the defendant via telephone?
Yes.
And why did the defendant call you, or what did she say when she called you?
Based on my conversation with Detective Ogden, he had been in communication with her on a very regular basis, maybe even daily, for quite some time working with her. She wasn't real pleased with the way things were going with him, and I think she figured maybe she might get further with me and was starting to reach out to me at that time.
So, what, if anything, did she say to you about the murder of Chris Regan?
She told me that what she had said to Detective Ogden, that Chris was shot and that he died quickly. It was a very, quite a lengthy conversation. There were many things she said. She talked about the night that it happened, October 14th. She talked about having to retrieve the cord for the Sawzall for her husband to dismember Chris Regan's body. She described in detail how her husband, dragged him into the center of the basement floor, which areas of his body he started to dismember first, which I believe she told me the shoulder area was first. She described to me how her husband wanted her to go and get some acid or use acid to put Chris Regan's head and hands in, but they didn't have enough acid to do that, number one. Number two point where she said if she were to go buy it at Ace Hardware or something, it would look suspicious. She said the head and hands were ultimately put into a separate bag from the rest of the body. She said that Jason was angry with her, and while he dragged the body into the basement, told her he wanted dinner and told her to cook him some hamburgers. She said she went upstairs and started cooking, and that she actually vomited in the pan, and then he threw the pan across the room. And, I'm not sure. I'm sure.
Was there any discussion regarding the bullet?
Yeah, she said that when her husband shot Chris Regan, that she was behind him, is what she told me originally, blocking the door or shutting the door, and that he fell back on her and the two of them tumbled down the basement stairs. She said that she ended up underneath him and had to get out from underneath him, that he was dead. She said that her husband made her try and dig the bullet out of Chris Regan's head with the forceps that he used for smoking marijuana. During this conversation, she also told me that she realized that she's going to have to try and convince the jury that her husband was abusive to her.
Did she indicate whether or not Jason Cochran had done anything with the gun after he shot Chris with respect to her?
If it was in that conversation, yes, she said, she actually told me the gun that was used to kill Chris Regan was a .22 rifle, and that weapon, she said, was actually still in their residence the day that the state police detectives went through their house back in early November. And she said that once the detectives had left the house, he took the gun out and he had ground down the stock and taken the shavings and put those shavings into one of their marijuana plants in the soil. She said that she then carried the barrel of the rifle in her pant leg. In fact, she said that it had cut her ankle while she was walking with it in her pant leg, and walked to the Caspian pit and threw it into the pit.
When you're discussing this with her, was there any discussion with her regarding how Chris got over to her house to begin with? Because the last time you had a conversation with her, this all happened, or she was over at Chris's residence.
She said that he had come to have dinner at her house that night. She had invited him over for dinner, still claiming that she made lasagna.
Was there any discussion regarding the communication with Chris that day and the phones?
Yes, she said that she used her husband's phone to text and have a phone call with Chris Regan. I asked her why she gave me an explanation that the reason she was using Jason's phone was because she was trying to blow Chris off, and so she wasn't using her phone. And of course that didn't make sense to me because she made plans with him on the 13th from her phone to see him. And so I never did actually get an explanation as to why she was using his phone to communicate with Chris.
What, if anything, was discussed about Chris Regan being at her house previously?
Well, she had told me he'd been there 2 or 3 times, and I believe it was in this conversation that she told me it was actually his first time there on October 14th.
Was there any discussion regarding where Jason Cochran was supposed to be when Chris Regan came over to her house that evening?
Originally, or at this point?
Well, originally.
Originally, in the November 10th interview, she had told me Jason had left on foot to go over to the neighbor's house, and she thought maybe they were going to the spa, which she described as George Young's. However, she said that he left his phone behind for her to use. And when I asked why he would do that, because her phone was working, she didn't give me an answer. They also only had one vehicle, which he left on foot. So that was her explanation November 10th. And then it did turn into Jason was waiting in the basement for Chris to arrive.
Was there a discussion about whether or not she knew at that point in time, on April 7th, that he was in the basement?
I had 4 phone calls with her in April, and I would not be able to know unless I looked at my reports whether or not that was the discussion where she told me that or not.
Would it help you to refresh your memory if you reviewed your report regarding your interview of her on April 7th?
Yes.
Make sure you review your report.
Yes. Is everybody hearing okay?
Yes.
What was the question again?
The question was whether or not she knew Jason Cochran was in the house when Chris came over.
Was that in a bullet point?
I believe so.
She said at that time she didn't think Jason knew Chris was coming over.
Was there any discussion with her regarding what she did when Jason came to the house? Or, excuse me, when Chris came to the house?
She told me that Chris first came to the front door and she had instructed him to come to the back door. So he came to the front door and she directed him around to the back.
Was there any discussion about where Chris parked his vehicle?
She says he parked it in the back but came around to the front.
So the defendant indicated to you he parked in the back, walked around to the front of the house and knocked on the door and she directed him to the back of the house?
Yes.
So, did she say why she did that?
Yeah, she said because of her dog being in the dining room area.
So, what were she and Chris Regan doing when he came through the door? What did they do after he came through the door?
Well, what she told me was that when Chris came in the back door, right inside the entryway, she said that she began to give him oral sex, and that she was giving oral sex there, which then led into actual sex. And she said that once they had finished having sex, and he turned to walk up the stairs, Jason shot him in the back of the head.
And where was she while Chris was walking up the stairs? Did she tell you?
She had told me that she was right behind him because she had to shut the door.
What did she say that they did, if anything?
What stairs did she say she was walking up?
So when you walk in the rear entryway, there's like a platform level. You walk in where you can go down the basement stairs to the left, or there's like 3 steps up into the pantry area and then into the kitchen. So he began to walk up, as she said, into the pantry area.
Those 3 steps?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry. Well, what, if anything, was discussed regarding the disposal of the car?
She told me that Jason wanted to put a rock on the pedal of the car and let it drive itself into the Caspian pit. That's all I can remember as far as what he wanted to do with it. What she told me did happen with it is that she said that Jason drove the car to the park and ride. She followed in the truck. She said that she had him wear a hat that was in the car so that, you know, he wouldn't look suspicious driving it.
Had she previously indicated to you or another officer that she had driven that car or been in that car?
Well, in her interview with Detective Bellinger on October 28th, she told Detective Bellinger that she had driven the car one time.
Did you confront her about that statement on the phone?
Yes.
What did she say?
She told me that she's never driven the car and she doesn't know why she lied to me about that, or lied to the detective about that.
So she tells you that Chris is shot in the back of the head, they tumble down the steps, that Jason forces her to dig the bullet, or tried to dig the bullet out with forceps. You indicated that she had also said that Jason dragged Chris to, I think, the middle of the basement. Was that accurate, or was it another location?
Yes, in front of the washer and dryer area.
And recalling right now, and you were here for the lab pictures, correct?
Yes.
And you've been in that basement, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Where the washer and dryer are located, is there also a pole or some sort of support system in front of the washer and dryer?
Yes.
Okay. Did she indicate to you where exactly, if it was between the washer and dryer and the pole, or in front of the pole?
Yes, basically in front of that beam, the support beam and the washer and dryer.
Okay. What, if anything, did she say regarding what they did after Chris was dismembered and cut up, with respect to Chris's remains?
Well, she says that Jason put those body parts in plastic bags, approximately 15 or so, that she backed the truck up to the back door, and that Jason carried the bags up and put them in the truck, and that she drove, and they were trying to pick a location as to where to get rid of his remains. She indicated, I believe, and I don't know if it was in this conversation or not, that they drove, down a couple different places. Jason wanted to go down Lake Emily Road. They talked about Ops Road, and Kelly advised that it was her idea to take the remains down into the truck.
So while you were talking to her, was there any conversation regarding why this has not been reported until she talked to Detective Ogden on March 30th?
What her reason was? Or?
Right, what her reason was for not reporting.
Yeah, she said that she couldn't talk about this because she was afraid that Jason might kill her if she did.
And did you discuss with her her contacts with law enforcement prior to this interview? Or just
Well, she had indicated to me that the day after or so, that she had actually driven alone back down Pentoga Trail to see if she could see the area that the remains were in. And I said, you were alone in the truck, you were traumatized, and you could have driven right to the sheriff's department. You could have called somebody and you would have been safe. And why didn't you report this? And she just, I'm not quite sure if she even actually gave me an answer for that or not.
Were there times when she was interviewed prior to this without Jason Cochran, to your knowledge? By law enforcement?
Prior to what?
Prior to April 7th, was she interviewed by law enforcement without Jason Cochran being right outside the door?
Yes. She'd been in fact, after Jason Cochran's death, she had, I believe it was 6 weeks or so that it took her to finally talk about this.
Prior to Jason Cochran's death, were there opportunities for her to tell law enforcement
Absolutely.
what happened?
Yes. Yeah, she was, I mean, she was, had access to the vehicle, and she had other contacts with law enforcement, and she had many opportunities to.
Was there any discussion with her regarding why she went back to the apartment on October 15th? Because she knew Chris was dead at that time.
She told me that she went to get her wedding band, that she said she left in his bedroom on the nightstand.
I didn't hear that.
She said that she went back to the apartment on October 15th to retrieve her wedding band that she had left on the nightstand next to the bed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And what discussion, if any, was had regarding cleanup?
Kelly just advised that she had used a lot of bleach and water, and then some areas scrubbed with a toothbrush, and that she cleaned for hours and hours and hours on end.
Any discussion regarding ammonia or sandpaper?
Yes, she said she used bleach, sandpaper. I don't know if there was any other chemicals other than that.
Okay. I want to direct your attention now to April 11th, 2016. 4 days after the last phone call, did you receive another phone call from Kelly Cochran?
I did. May I refer to my...
Yes.
Thank you.
What was the main purpose of this phone call or discussion with you and Kelly Cochran on that date?
You know, she started out the phone call just saying that she wanted to come up and help us find Chris's remains. She knew that we didn't locate him in the area she indicated, and said that she wanted to help find him.
And was there discussion with her regarding a location that the remains might have been dumped?
Yes. She told me that, you know, she'd be able to find the location because she had previously placed another item in this location.
And what item did she indicate to you that she had placed in the location where Chris's remains were dumped?
She referred to it as a trophy bag. And she said that it was a bag that she described it as a Crown Royal bag that contained a trinket from each victim that they had killed.
When you say they, she didn't actually say they, didn't she say her husband had killed?
At that time, yes.
And did she say how she came to have this trinket bag in her possession?
I'm going to have to refer to my...
And she may not have said it in this interview.
I don't think she just said that at that time she claimed that Jason had told her about all these deaths that he caused in an 11-year period or so, and that he had kept a trinket, and that she had possession of the bag at some point, and her plan was to bury this trinket bag in a location so that if she needed it later to prove something, that she could get it.
So what did she indicate that indicate to you, if anything, that she did with this trinket bag?
She said that she buried the trinket bag near a tree in the same area in which Chris Reagan's remains were disposed of, and that she dug a hole and put the remains. She had put the remains in a sealed plastic bag, and then put the bag in the hole. And she then covered the hole with a 12 by 18 inch aluminum piece of aluminum. She described it as a piece of aluminum she had under one of her beams in her house, and she said she placed that plate over the top of the hole, and then she cut out a section of grass and put that over the top. So, and she said that on numerous occasions, that this trinket bag is something we should be able to locate with a metal detector.
And was there any indication during this interview as to when that trinket bag was placed?
She said it was prior to Chris Reagan, prior to his death, that she put it there.
Okay. What was your response to that?
I just thought it was really ironic or strange that she went to this location prior to Chris Reagan's death and buried this trinket bag, and then that ends up being the spot that Jason knows to put Chris Reagan's remains.
Was there any further discussion regarding whether Jason Cochran had ever threatened her or anything like that?
Which,
You know, it may be in the video, perhaps not in the report, because these videos, of course, are quite
can you
lengthy.
repeat the question?
Sure. Was there any discussion regarding Jason threatening her during that interview?
I really can't recall.
Okay. All right. I want to direct your attention now to April 13th, 2016. Did you receive some evidence from Hobart Police Department at that time?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what did you receive?
2 shirts, a blue t-shirt and a pink tank top.
And what significance, if any, did these have to the investigation?
The defendant had told the detective that these were the shirts worn while they dismembered Chris Reagan's body.
And was there any indication if those shirts had been washed or not washed?
They had been washed.
Did the defendant call you again on April 23rd, 2016?
Yes. Do you mind if I look at my... Your Honor, may I look at my...
Yes, ma'am. Take it, Mr. Shoki, you don't have any objection to this refresh report.
I send you that, Your Honor.
Okay.
During this conversation, what, if anything, was done to attempt to solidify or pinpoint the location of Chris's remains?
She gave me a better description. She was trying to help me locate the correct spot by telling me some landmarks, like a gate near the remains, as well as some no trespassing signs as a landmark. She described a little dirt road. I mean, she was just giving me more information so that I could possibly find the remains.
What, if anything, did she say about Chris's glasses?
Well, she said that she believes that the glasses were still on him and probably with the remains.
Now, at some point in time, was a warrant issued by Iron County?
Yes, on April 28th, 2016.
And was the defendant arrested on that warrant to your knowledge?
Yes, she was.
Where was she arrested at?
She was in Kentucky.
And was she brought back to Michigan?
Yes, she was.
And was she arraigned on May 16th, 2016?
Yes, she was.
Were you later contacted on that date by the Iron County Correctional Facility?
Yes, I was.
And what was the nature of that contact from them?
They told me that Kelly had requested to speak with me.
And did you go and speak with her at that point in time?
Yes, I did.
And approximately what time did you arrive at the correctional facility?
Shortly after 8 p.m.
What did she say that evening to you, and why did she want to talk to you?
You know, she wasn't really happy when she first arrived in the courtroom because she had a long trip in that transport van with there were other inmates that they were transporting to different places, and she was upset. She'd been in there for a while. So I think that after she had been in her cell for a little while, she decided she did want to speak with me, and when we did speak, prior to her coming, she had been trying to help me find the remains and indicated that she still did want to help me with that. We had a long discussion while I was there. She actually wanted to leave that night and go to the house to show me some different things in the house and have an interview there. But I told her I thought it would be better to wait till morning and plus to speak with her attorney and whatnot. So we talked a little bit about her, and we kind of, I think for the first time, talked on a completely different level than we had in the past. I mean, she told me a little more about herself, got a little more personal about her history. She had told me at that time that she's been homicidal her whole life. She was born that way, that her family's always known what she is. I believe during this conversation she told me that people like herself, it's like they find other people like them and they communicate. She kind of described it as being a kind of a chemical feeling that you can feel it when someone is like you are. She believes in evil. She doesn't have remorse. I asked her what made her, at one point I asked her what would make her choose a victim, and she said opportunity. And I guess, you know, I can't remember everything, but I mean, we concluded by, you know, me telling her that I was going to try to call her attorney. She did want to go, we call it a field trip the following day, so she could point out these things to me. And so I left at that point.
Let's back up for a minute here. You mentioned something that probably bears some explanation, and maybe we should do a sidebar before I go into this. Judge.
Members of the jury, we haven't had one of these before, but this is called a bench conference, and we're just discussing something that really is in my ballpark and not yours. So that's what just happened. Ms. Paul?
When you saw her in the courtroom on May 16th, 2016, and she was being arraigned in front of Judge Schwedler, did she request an attorney at that time?
At that time, she said she wanted to represent herself, but was requesting an attorney for assistance.
And was there a different attorney appointed as a standby counsel, so to speak?
Yes,
And who was that attorney?
Jeffrey Lawrence.
So I want to take you back to when you're speaking with her in the at the jail on May 16th. Did something significant occur in the case when she was in Kentucky?
Yes,
And to your knowledge, did Detective Ogden and Detective Hulk from Hobart PD go and see her while she was in jail in Kentucky?
yes,
And based on their conversations with her, did this case completely change?
yes,
Up to that point in time in Kentucky, or up to the point in time when she was arrested in Kentucky, was it her stance that it was always Jason who had done this?
yes.
So when you're speaking with her on May 16th, 2016 in the jail, had she already given some indication, to your knowledge, to a detective that she had a bit more participation in this than she originally let on?
Yes.
What was your understanding of what she relayed to Detective Ogden? Your understanding?
That she participated in luring Chris Reagan to the house for the purpose of him being killed.
And what was your understanding with respect to whether or not she was responsible for any other crimes?
Yes, she was talking about other victims that she had. She had killed other people. In fact, I think she told me, I'm not going to guess, but she was referring to the victims, and my recollection is that she actually said to me that while she was in the Kentucky jail, she had made shanks out of her glasses, and those were discovered by the jail personnel. And she told me that I asked her why she made them, and she kind of laughed and said she was bored. And she said that she considered stabbing the female correctional officer with them, but she said she was actually nice to her, so she changed her mind and hurt herself instead.
So you had said that she expressed to you during this conversation that she didn't have any remorse. Did she express to you whether she possessed any other feelings?
She just said she really doesn't feel that it makes her sick when people express emotion and they're sad. It makes her sick to have that feeling.
Was there any discussion with her regarding why Chris and not Eric?
At one point she said it was supposed to be both of them. And then I think at one point she told me that it was Jason's choice, so I'm not sure.
So on May 17th, 2016, did you and Kelly Cochran go somewhere?
Yes.
And were other people involved in this trip?
Yes.
Okay, who all went on this trip?
Because she was in the custody of the sheriff, so we made arrangements with the sheriff for her to take us to these locations and point out different things involved in the crime. So Mike Webster, who is actually a retired conservation department and works for the sheriff's department as well as a deputy, and Brent Benson, who's sergeant with the sheriff's department, came with Kelly and I on this trip.
And before you went on this trip, had you made attempts to contact the standby counsel?
I did actually talk to him. I had left him a message the previous night when I was talking to her at the jail. And then the following morning, she had told me on the 16th that he was coming to see her the next morning at 9 o'clock. So I told her I was going to wait for him to come in and see her before we went, just so that I could talk with him. So when he came out from talking to her, I think his answer was that he tried to advise her against it, but it was her choice and she wanted to go.
That was the impression that you had?
That's what he told me.
Okay. So, May 17th, 2016, you guys all gathered together here at the Sheriff's Department, right?
Yes.
Okay. Where do you go when you leave the Sheriff's Department?
So at that point, I actually had a dog handler from Madison here, and I had made arrangements for her to come like a week prior, before I even knew this was going to take place. We were going to go search another location. Just so happened that she contacted me because she was in Wisconsin, not far from Iron River, and she came into town the night of the 16th. So she met us here at the Sheriff's Department, and I had Officer D'Antonio from my office also come to follow us out to the locations as well.
Where did you go?
So we left here and proceeded west on US 2, and our first stop was on Pentoga Trail. Kelly actually said in the vehicle that she would prefer not all of the participants come at once, and so it was she just didn't prefer that. So Officer D'Antonio and the dog handler, Alyssa Palmer, parked their vehicles at the intersection of Pentoga Trail and US 2 until we got back to them, and we proceeded south on Pentoga Trail.
And how far down Pentoga Trail did you go at that point in time?
Well, we went down and we went past the original location she had pointed out, which, like I said, is almost a mile, and continued on. And she kept referring to certain curves in the road with an incline that she was kind of looking for. She also was kind of looking for a different, some type of tree. So as we passed by one location, she kind of had us stop and she looked. She got out, looked around, decided this might not be the right location. She's looking at the incline. She doesn't think it's the right location. So we continued on, turned around, came back, and then she had us pull over again. And on this occasion, she got out and walked directly to an area where this tree, which I am assuming is the tree that she was identifying with, was actually down. It had either fallen or, I don't know if the road commission actually cut it, because it was, whatever, an issue. But this tree was actually down, and she went to it, and she actually asked the question, how long has this tree been down? And Mike Webster, who was a conservation, I believe he was a sergeant, responded that it possibly a year, maybe not quite a year because of the saplings that were underneath. He was able to determine that. So she started digging around this tree where it had fallen, around its trunk, and with her foot, and felt pretty confident that this was the area that the remains had been placed.
Did you take her up and down Pentoga another time or another couple times to verify or confirm that this was the location?
Yes, because she had made reference many times to this road and knew specifically that once you make the turn near Hilbert Road, it becomes County Road 639. So I wanted to make sure we went down and around that curve so she was well acquainted with the area.
And did you go back to that location where the tree was down and she was picking it?
Yes.
And what did you do when you got back to the location?
Then I called Alyssa Palmer, the dog handler, to come down to that location.
And did Alyssa with the dog come down to your location?
Yes, and so they came down, and the way it works with those, you don't give them any kind of information as to where the area of interest might be. You just don't. You just let them get out and try and see what the dog does. And it was amazing because the dog got out and went directly to that tree trunk area and kind of circled it, and then it went directly east of the tree trunk area, which was maybe 15 to 20 feet-ish east of the tree, and was digging in this leaf pile and uncovered what looked like a black garbage bag.
And we had Lisa Orovitz from the lab testify earlier today regarding some black garbage bag samples, dirt and debris that she had tested. Were those items that you had submitted as a result of this day?
Yes.
So the dog is digging around in the brush or the undercover there. What did you do?
I was advised by actually Leslie Larson from the FBI at that time as to how to remove that bag properly and protect it because we needed to collect it at that time. So we collected that bag at that time.
What did you do after you collected the bag?
The area was marked. The dog indicated, which I guess they didn't say, indicated source. So they can indicate, dogs will indicate scent and source. And when they have scent, it could be the wind is blowing it in from somewhere, they're not sure, but the actions of the dog are alerting the trainer that it's scent, it's getting scent from somewhere. When they call it, the dog had source, the dog will actually sit back and indicate source that it's here.
So you collected the bag. Did you guys do any further searches, I guess, with the dog in that area?
Not at that time. Alyssa Palmer had a GPS, and so basically when we went from location to location, she was in charge of documenting or recording the GPS location of that item. And we knew we would come back to that spot, but because we only had so much time and we had other locations to go to, we needed to move forward.
You said you had other locations to go to. Did you proceed from that location to another location?
We proceeded from that location to Wildwood Lake, also known as 28 Lake, which is located across from the park and riding gates.
And what did you do at that location?
Kelly indicated that this is where she had thrown Chris Regan's camera into the water.
Now, this is the first time since you've been testifying, I think, that I heard about this camera. What's up with the camera?
When Terry O'Donnell reported Chris Regan missing, she, on the night that she reported him, actually said his camera's missing. That night she noticed it was missing. So at one point during the investigation, Kelly advised that she had gone into Chris Regan's apartment and stolen his camera. She later verified or said that she had thrown it into Wildwood Lake.
So you're at Wildwood Lake. What did she do at that point?
So I had the dive team. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's later. We GPSed the location where she stood on the shoreline, indicating that she had thrown the camera into the water.
Approximately how long were you at that location?
10 minutes.
Did you, was the canine at that location?
No.
No? Okay. What did you do next?
From there, I believe we went to the Caspian Pit.
And what, if anything, did you do at the Caspian Pit?
She, again, showed us where she threw the barrel of the rifle into the pit.
When you say she threw the barrel of the rifle into the pit, how did the gun get to that location?
She carried it in her pant leg.
And was she by herself, or was she with her husband at that time? Do you know?
Well, I do believe there was one time she said that he went with her, that he walked with her.
So, was that spot marked?
Yes, with the GPS.
Did you then go to her house at 66 Lawrence in Caspian?
Yes.
Why did you guys go there?
Because she claimed that there was part of the gun still in the house underneath the stairs, going upstairs to the upper level of the house. She also claimed that the forceps were still, or could possibly still be in the house.
When you went to that house, did you start in the basement of the home?
Yes.
And what did she do in the basement of the home?
Kelly had at one point on one of our phone calls indicated to me that when Jason was really angry with her prior to Chris's death, he fired 2 rounds at her head, missing her, and that she took the casings from those rounds and pushed them into a hole in the basement floor, in concrete, like, you know, I guess where you can get a hole in the gap of the seam from the wall to the floor. She had indicated that to us before. We had gone and checked to look for those casings, but never did locate them.
Have you ever located them since that time?
No.
Did she show you anything else while she was in the basement?
We were talking about the stock of the gun that she said Jason ground down and put into one of the marijuana plants, but as she looked around, she said that actually the pot wasn't there, the one that she was indicating.
And was there discussion regarding one of the stairs?
Yes, one of the stairs that was there, she indicated a spot in which she said, while Chris was laying there and she was trying to pry the bullet out of his head, there was some gray matter that she wiped off from the forceps onto the stair.
So you go upstairs. What room do you go into when you go upstairs?
Into the kitchen.
And what, if anything, occurred in the kitchen?
Well, right when we walked into the kitchen, Sergeant Benson was standing in the kitchen and had noticed there was a pair of forceps near the kitchen sink, and she said those were the forceps that were used.
Were those seized at that time?
Yes.
So you're in the kitchen, the defendant's in the kitchen, Sergeant Benson's there. Was there anyone else there? Was Deputy Webster still there?
Yes. And Alyssa Palmer was there also.
So what did you guys do after you found the forceps in the kitchen?
Sergeant Benson was attempting to retrieve this other part of the rifle from under the stairs. There's like the kitchen, bathroom, and there's a stairway going to the upper level, and there's like this little square cabinet area you can open up, and it's like under the stairs, and I think you can even go straight down to the basement through it. But pushed back in the corner, she claimed was part of this .22 rifle. So Sergeant Benson crawled in there and did retrieve, came out with what was referred to as a magazine tube for the .22 rifle. Part of the gun.
Okay, and that was seized?
Yes.
So after you're at her house, did you go anywhere else with her that day?
I don't believe so.
Was she taken back to the jail at that point in time?
Yes, and I think it was approximately 5 o'clock at night.
So she's taken back to the jail. What did you do that evening after she was returned to the correctional facility?
Well, when we got back to the office, it was approximately 5 p.m. and the dog handler, Alyssa Palmer, had told me she couldn't stay another night. She had something going on. She had to head back. First thing, take that back. I can't recall if she had to head back that night or first thing in the morning. And so I really wanted to have that dog out on Patoga with me. So I asked her if she would just, please give it an hour. Let's go out there for an hour and just, do a little searching. And she agreed to do that. So we drove out there. I think we got out there maybe around 20 after 5. So we got out of the vehicle, went back to the tree, back to the area where the bag was, and we continued to walk east. And we walked maybe, 50 to 75 feet east, and there was like an animal trail, like, deer path. And my working with Mike Nider, he always said if you're looking for remains, try to stay on a deer path or an animal trail because it could lead you to, remains because they carry them off. And so we ended up going north onto the animal trail and not far, maybe another 100 feet. And we came to a clearing. And when we came to the clearing, the dog bolted to the east. And I wasn't really paying attention. And the handler was kind of trying to run to catch up with the dog. And the dog's barking and barking, and I finally looked over, and the handler, as she was approaching the dog, turned around and looked at me, and just kind of covered her mouth, and I looked, and the dog is kind of barking and kind of circling, and then it sits for source, and I could see what I thought looked like a stone, a rock, And as I got closer, I could see that it was a skull.
Go ahead, Cochran. Chief Rizzo, I'm showing you what's been marked as people's exhibit number 3, or proposed exhibit number 3. The court has already made a ruling with respect to this exhibit, and I'd move for its admission if it's not already been
Please
admitted.
received.
Do you recognize, first of all, that bag?
Over objection.
Yes, this bag is marked with the evidence tag from Iron River Police Department as a human skull.
Could you open that for us, please?
Would you like me to pick it up?
Yes, could you please show that to us? Is that the skull that you found on May 17th, 2016?
Yes.
After finding that skull, what did you do?
Do you want her to describe any of the features, or can she put it away?
She could put it away.
Okay, I just want to make a note that when I saw the skull, it was lying on its side like this, on its right side. And as I got closer to it and I saw the teeth, I knew it was Chris Reagan.
You're subject for cross-examination.
Okay, what did you do after you found the skull?
Officer D'Antonio had arrived and I asked him to call. First thing I asked for was a medical examiner, and then I asked for evidence technicians. And I then called Leslie Larson with the FBI evidence response team because I had told her if we came upon the remains that I would contact them, they would guide me.
And did they come out there that evening to assist you?
The evidence technicians from the Sheriff's Department arrived probably within 15-20 minutes.
And were you able to make contact with the medical examiner?
Yes, I was.
And was he able to come out there that evening?
I believe his associate, Steve Gagnon, responded to the scene.
What did you guys do with the skull that evening?
The evidence technician secured it, wrapped it, and it was turned over to us. I took the skull that evening and just placed it securely into evidence.
And were any photographs or anything taken of the area that evening, or where the skull was that evening?
Yes.
What did you do, if anything, the next day with respect to this investigation?
The next day I met with the Michigan State Police dive team, and we proceeded to the Caspian pit, and I showed them the location that the barrel was allegedly thrown into.
And while they were doing their dive, did you proceed back to the location where the skull was found on Pentoga Trail?
Yes, and also there were, they had a team of maybe 7 on the dive team, 2 members. Also, I brought to Wildwood Lake to attempt to find the camera also. So I was kind of going between all 3 areas.
Okay. So first Caspian pit, then you took 2 other people to Wildwood Lake,
Yes,
and then you proceeded to Pentoga.
yes.
Was anyone with you at Pentoga location on that day?
Mike Niger came. One human remains detection dog arrived. Brent Benson with the Sheriff's Department as the evidence technician was there also. I don't know if I'm leaving anybody out, but...
Was Deputy Schiavo there?
I think he may have been for a little while, but I don't think right away.
And at some point in time, you called me to come to the scene, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, was that the same day?
I can't recall.
Okay. So, what were all these people doing at Pantoga location on that day, or the place where the skull was found?
You know, the Leslie Larson with the FBI just said basically, if you see something, secure it, pick it up. You know, she didn't really want us to really disturb a lot. They were planning on coming, they just couldn't get there for a couple days. And so basically, it was kind of like a grid search in a way where everyone was assigned a section that they were kind of checking for pieces or anything that would go with, you know, Chris Reagan's missing any of his property or other.
So you're conducting a search at that point in time. Was anything found on that day?
Yes, the glasses were discovered, I believe, by Mike Niger, and they were actually located between the trunk of that tree and where the garbage bag was located, kind of almost in between the two, but off to the north a little bit.
And was anything else found that day?
Yep, there was a chew can also not far from the glasses. There were some bones were located that we weren't sure. I mean, I never realized how identical some of the human and animal bones can be. So all bones that were found were collected,
Was there another snuff can or perhaps maybe another bag that were found across the road?
Yes, that was discovered, I think it was the same day. It could have been the following day.
And I don't know how this occurred, but did you receive a call from the dive team at some point in time that day?
This was on the 18th, and on the 18th was their first dive day, and they really had only allowed themselves one day to dive. So they gave it their best, and at the end of the day, they didn't locate the barrel. So the dive master, when I talked with him, said, you know, we just feel compelled, we're going to come out in the morning and give it a few more hours. So it was actually the morning or late morning, early afternoon of the following day that they did locate the barrel.
And did they ever locate anything in Wildwood Lake?
No. However, they said, you know, it's such a shallow lake, the rocks, the current, somebody could have seen it and stolen it. So they knew kind of from the get-go that they didn't have favorable conditions to find it.
Your Honor, I'm not sure how long you want to go today. We have about another...
Is this a logical break in your examination?
It is, Your Honor. We have
And you're
about
not
another
going to
hour.
finish that examination in a half hour?
No.
Members of the jury, it's been a long week. We're going to take an adjournment right now. You're excused. When you, again, I'm reminding you of who you can talk to and what you can talk about. Please don't do any independent investigations on your own. Please don't visit the scenes of any of the places that were subject of testimony today. We'll see you bright and early at 9 o'clock on Monday morning.
All rise.